crisis has actually driven the agenda further forward, I think, because financially it's always the driver on businesses, but it's quite nice now to see it that it's not just financial, it's you get that's environmental benefit as well, and generating your own electricity, but also being more economical with the electricity installation on the building. People just don't want to waste it because they'll learn to appreciate how much this actually costs and how much impact it's making on the environment to generate it. So if you're just looking after the resources better, it's got to be a plus, hasn't it? And that's, so in one way, it is a positive move.
Good morning. We are delighted to continue our series of Make IT Happen by Sims International. And today, delighted to be joined by Sheryl from Stone Computers, Matthew, who is an independent consultant working with Sims and other companies, and Roger from Jigsaw 24, one of the largest Apple reseller in the UK. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Sheryl's new to this discussion group, so I think it would be a good place to start for Sheryl just to introduce yourself and your exciting role at Stone.
Right. Well, thank you very much for letting me be here today. Yes, I'm Sheryl Moore. I'm the head of sustainability at the Stone Group. Started in June, so almost a new starter. Yeah, and I'm in charge of the whole ESG agenda. And I the reason I was in construction before, and I came to Stone really because of their circular economy solution, which I think is amazing. So yeah, delighted to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and you're very welcome. Roger, how are you? We haven't, the podcast was around 6 months ago. How is the world at Jigsaw?
Great, thanks. Lots of activity on lots and lots of fronts. I mean, it's non-stop. It's sort of moved into business as usual now, which is what you want to hear, I suppose. We've tripled the number of electric chargers. We've had a new EP3 rating, which we're going to get the results for tomorrow. We're hoping to move from a near D to hopefully a B at our head office in Nottingham, which is Victorian. So that will be quite an achievement if we can go to that rating. We're moving in London from a D to a B on the EPC rating again. And it was interesting that without really any formal management consultation, it was immediately apparent to us all between us, and there's about 6 who are the key decision makers on this new premises, that the environmental efficiency of the building was a total non-negotiable and our first and primary requirement. And it was a lovely moment when we sort of looked at each other, and I think landlords up and down the country now are hopefully in 2 camps, and hopefully the dwindling camp is the NIMBYs who are or Luddites who are not doing enough, versus hopefully the growing majority who are saying, yes, we're happy to invest in our premises, and we need to make sure that they're efficient and kind of generating electricity themselves, but at least can maybe helping with EV charges. So the answer is Jigsaw's been moving forward on lots of fronts with more and more support from everyone, which is great to see. And
Matthew, both with Sims and I guess with other clients, starting with Sims, in fact, we have a meeting this morning just to finalise the project here at Sims, so we're not moving like Roger, but the investment we're making here at Sims on solar, EV chargers and air heat pumps. So you've done a lot of work around that, but maybe just a brief overview of that investment, plus anything that you've got currently going on with some of your other clients.
Yeah, so we've sort of going ahead with a fairly substantial solar PV array at the Sims office in Kent, which is great, and that project will get underway very soon now. So that's we've been planning that over the summer. So we'll get the electrical side of it done first, and then perhaps move on to the heating element of that, which will be an air source heat pump integrated with the solar as well. So that's good to hear. And in general, I think I was with a client yesterday who's pushing ahead with their sustainability and ESG agenda. So just completed a quite a large baseline carbon footprint for that business. So they're certainly keeping the pressure on this topic, which is good to hear. I mean, despite a slight downturn in some parts of the economy, I think people are still interested in this topic, which is good.
Okay, thank you. Sheryl, obviously, only 3 months in the new role. I suppose a question: the momentum that's carrying or has been in stone, is that's continuing? Are you on the same path as who you took over from? Is that
Absolutely, it's amazing, really. It's some parts, you're holding onto their coattails because it's like, I want to go and do this, and then the people you're bringing forward, and it's basically be sort of consolidating all that activity, really. So yes, very much moving towards solar panels, because the site will do that, which is brilliant. Slight interesting, because it's an infrastructure issue actually with the actual electrical supplier and the storage and the substation that's stopping us moving forward at the speed that we want to. So it's interesting on the interrelationship with different organizations of what you can move forward with. But internally, we're doing as much as we can. So we've been doing an awful lot with our packaging and storage solutions as well, and also transportation with our supply chain and getting products to and from. So we've been working a lot with that sort of activity as well, especially reducing our carbon footprint.
okay? No, thank you. I think we'd all accept the world is at a very different place today than it was actually when we spoke last time. In fact, I think when we spoke last time, the awful war in Ukraine had just started. We've obviously seen energy prices rising, and inflation and all the economic challenges that are coming to hit us. Are we concerned that the investments into the environmental activities that all our businesses are doing, are we going to see companies push this down the agenda? And should we be worried about that? Roger, I know you're a great reader of all things global. What are your thoughts about where it is on the agenda today versus where it was, say, in late February?
I have no concerns at all, and I think it's higher up the agenda. We're a funny, selfish lot, the human race, and sometimes it takes events for progress to be made. It took the plague in the 14th century for social progress to be made and true mobility to start, and the beginning of wages and the end of serfdom. And I think, to draw the modern analogy, we can't just keep wearing ever thicker layers of jumpers over the winter. We've got to start generating our own electricity, all of us. We've got to stop waste. We've got to appreciate what things cost in terms of fuel meters and smart meters and so on. So I think this is going to push the green agenda up to the top. I'm not political. I have voted for all three, in fact, all four parties, if you include the Greens. But to see that Labour are leading on a 2030 initiative is significant, not because it's Labour, but because all the political parties borrow from each other. And you can bet your bottom dollar that even if some people may think, and that's another judgment to be made for other people on another occasion, the current government is veering more possibly to the right, because Labour have put this commitment in for 2030 for British energy independence, you can be pretty sure it will be in most manifestos by 2030. It's becoming mainstream now. And the fact we all need to save money, the economic imperative, what is it? Grab people by their wallets and their hearts and minds will usually follow. And I'm afraid, or maybe I'm not afraid, maybe I'm celebrating quietly that that's the case. Tragic though the circumstances are, the awful circumstances which have led us.
So Matthew, again, you're very aware with our continued commitment at Sims, but what are you finding in talking to new clients, current clients? Is it still a key investment companies are wanting to make?
Yes, and obviously there's, in the good times, sort of people get stuck into these topics, and they have done so very intensively over the last 5 years, and I see that continuing. I think people are very much tuning into the higher costs that they're facing. I think a lot of them would have preferred to have taken action many years ago to sort of help protect them a bit more at the moment. But nevertheless, I think people, the cycle continues, the sun starts shining early, when it starts shining early next year, people will get very excited about solar panels again, less so over the winter. So it's a perennial issue, really. I think the high prices are stress testing a lot of people's, awareness of how much their businesses are paying for energy. Obviously, the support package that the government's put in place, well, the early support package was unprecedented for consumers, and of course the business support package has come along, which is obviously the first time it's ever happened. So the government has responded. There's been a lot of preamble to the support package, which I think has sort of frightened a lot of people. But essentially, the way I see it is that energy prices will stabilise for the next 6 months. So we're sort of roughly 34 pence a unit for electricity and around about 10 pence for gas. Electricity has more than doubled and gas has probably gone up 4 or 5 times. So not a good situation. But at least now with the support package in place, businesses can forecast their energy costs with a bit more certainty. So that's good. And I think the more businesses can prepare over the next 6 months if they are able to invest in technologies that help take away their dependence on the grid, that's probably a very, very sensible thing to do. And because of the high prices, the return on investment and the paybacks is kind of halved, if not more than halved. So in many ways, there's never been a better time to go for this kind of decarbonisation investment. Of course, demand's gone up, the supply chain has tightened, and as always, the good installers are very, very busy. So do plan, businesses do need to plan ahead. They do need to look at their local supply chains. But I still maintain it's, a positive. There are some positives coming out of all this, these strong sort of economic headwinds that we're all facing. But I think there are some positives, and I think people have got the next 6 months or so to get really stuck into this topic now and make some good decisions. And I think, as Roger was saying, I think governments borrow from each other, and I think the country was already on track for a significant, investment in homegrown energy. So the 2030 target it's a good thing to hear from Labour, but I think the existing government was more or less going in that direction anyway. So I don't think it's a good headline, but actually the government's commitment to sort of homegrown energy was already very strong. And for example, I think offshore wind capacity was set to double anyway. So we have made good progress in this country, and we are continuing to make good progress. I think the last auctions for contracts for difference, for example, was a record-breaking auction. So there's still a lot of investment appetite for this part of the economy as well. So that's, there are some positives here. So I don't think we should be too gloomy about the next 5 years or so. So there's lots more will happen anyway.
No, well, thank you, Matthew. Sheryl, yes, same with you. We talked briefly before we started recording that clearly some of the economic headwinds, as Matthew's saying. Do you think similar to what's already been said?
Absolutely, and I think it's almost as terrible as crisis has actually driven the agenda further forward. I think because financially it's always the driver on businesses, but it's quite nice now to see it that it's not just financial. It's you get that's environmental benefit as well, and generating your own electricity, but also being more economical with the electricity installation on the building. People just don't want to waste it because they'll learn to appreciate how much this actually costs and how much impact it's making on the environment to generate it. So if you're just looking after the resources better, it's got to be a plus, hasn't it? And that's, so in one way, it is a positive move. It's very much on the supply chain. It's interesting, you're trying to get an electric car at the moment. The delays are just incredible. You can see that demand coming up, and it's just the manufacturing hasn't sort of brought that in line. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But I think costs will come down as well. I think, it become more mainstream having these solar panels and other products and EV chargers. I think the price at the moment is still quite expensive, but I think with the demand going up, I think the costs will come down and more people will join into the economy with it.
Yeah. And what do we think all our businesses work in the IT sector or channel, as we often call it? Roger, I know you are a prominent speaker in the channel, for the channel. What are your thoughts as, looking at what we as companies in the IT sector, do you think we're performing well? I guess everybody could be doing better, but how do you see the IT stacking up against other industries?
What, in terms of economic robustness, or in terms of sustainability progress?
Sustainability.
Oh, I think we're ahead, because we've always been quite forward-looking. We're not frightened of new technology. We're not frightened of investment. Basically, it's just enlightened capex, isn't it? But there are lots of other benefits. We've talked about costs, and it's just been said by another speaker that the ROI is now twice as good. I mean, that's massive. But then there's the reputational side, and everyone talks about the talent drain and the key importance of attracting and retaining talent. I think it's going to become politically unacceptable very, very soon for you not to be generating some level of electricity from your building. And I think that landlords that don't invest are going to be in real trouble. And I think that things are changing really, really fast. The second best-selling car in Britain last month was a Tesla Model Y, which sells for £50,000. And that's the second top seller by unit, which means it was the top seller by revenue. I think it beat a much more modestly priced Ford. And also it came second to a modestly priced Ford. That's extraordinary. That wouldn't have happened 2 years ago, let alone 5 years ago. So the world is changing at warp speed. You would, Sims, who are a forward-looking, mid-sized distributor, would have been thought to be cranks to be putting solar on their roof. Just 3 years ago, I would suggest. And now everyone's saying, well, that's good of Sims. They are ahead of the pack. We should be there too. There's a bit of envy, a bit of FOMO. And that's just happened in 3 years. And I know you're in the Garden of Kent and the sun's always beautiful there, blah, blah, blah. But what a transformation. And I just think this level of transformation is just going to accelerate now. So I think IT is well placed, and I think we're all well placed, and we just need to keep moving really, really quickly. One of those things where, you look behind and you're ahead of the pack, and what should your response be? Put your head down, grit your teeth, and run even harder, even faster, because I think that's what we all need to do.
Okay. No, thank you. And I guess, Sheryl, you can speak with great authority, having come, I think you said, from the construction industry into IT. I don't know whether you had previous IT experience, but having, albeit 3 months in the IT industry, do you think that the IT industry is committed and investing well, in your view, being relatively new to it?
Absolutely. It's amazing because the products are changing very much just on energy consumption. You can see the way they're building, the actual laptops and computers to have less energy consumption. And then you've got obviously, all the servers as well. And the stuff that Microsoft are doing on offsite, on what they're doing on the cloud-based servers is making a massive impact. And they're saying they're going to be carbon neutral by 2025. So you can just see how it translates, let alone the circular economy that we're talking about, where, with ITAD products, where you're just bringing, used products back into circulation to find, new buyers, and just bringing that longevity of the actual product, which makes sense, sort of extended warranties, repair and maintenance. I just think people are seeing the actual benefits from that. And it wasn't just really from people were doing it for an environmental point of view, but also from an economic point of view, which again is driven into people's pockets at the moment. Or would you really need that highest spec at the moment? So we're seeing the ITAD sales really improving, because people are going, well, actually, we do need a computer, but we don't necessarily need the most current model. We will move to this one. So we definitely see that sort of demand increasing as well. And it's a much better solution, isn't it, for certain people to do that, but I think it's having a mixture and offering that whole range of different products for different people. But I love that some of the products, so like Microsoft are bringing in a plastic mouse that, you know, made from ocean plastic, and I've seen a keyboard with that, and I think there's going to be more of that, and more actually even on new build using recycled products as well. And you can already see that in different sectors in the retail, for instance, where they're bringing into account all that. So I think definitely much looking at the original resources as well and trying to get the most out of it.
Yeah, no, thank you. Matthew, I guess you're in a great position in that you're looking at lots of different industries. I don't know, Sims is the only sort of IT company you work with, but would you agree with what Roger and Sheryl have been saying?
Well, I think so, and I think obviously the products that we use, the IT products that we use are, you know, very refined pieces of equipment these days, very energy efficient. I mean, the laptop I've got, sort of the battery is, you know, incredible compared to the previous one. So there's, you know, there's still real improvements being made, and I think there are opportunities to sort of push things into the circular economy. I mean, the more recycling that goes on, the better. And there is some really good stuff happening in the IT sector, I think, with recovering, you know, there's a company in Kent, actually, I was reading about the other day, in Sittingbourne. They're sort of doing quite a lot of work with IT equipment that they'll collect it for free. They will reuse it, reallocate it where they can, and where they can't reuse it, it'll be broken down and recycled very, you know, to a very great level of detail. So there is a lot of room, I think, for this sort of local, regional level, highly detailed recycling and circular economy activity to go. So there are some clear leaders at the moment, but there is a lot more that can happen. And I think often it's like it's at a town or small city scale. If you take a city like Canterbury, for example, you know, it's a small city, compact, quite a lot of, a lot of businesses not really recovering materials that well. Some are doing a good job, but many aren't. And you could really envisage in the near future sort of very local scale recycling systems. And I think, you know, our neighbours in France and the Netherlands and Germany already do this particularly well. And I'm always surprised that we are really lagging behind on that kind of circular economy stuff. So I'd love to see more of that happening. And I think the IT sector is well placed to actually, you know, it's already doing a good job, but it could obviously do more and, you know, help educate other types of businesses.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you. Just probably more for Sheryl and Roger, in that, and it's really a question for myself, in that when one is thinking about sustainability, are you spending more time looking at what your vendors are currently doing and understanding what they're doing, or is it about what you should be doing, or how you should be encouraging or working with your customers, or don't you even look at separating it? It's about what your individual companies are doing overall. Sheryl.
So we've done some analysis of our supply chain. There's about 400, and it's interesting. Some are leading the way. You know, they're very good on sustainability, and you're working very closely with them. You know, when we're talking about transportation, so DPD are using electric vehicles and stuff. But some of the other organisations aren't. So it's sharing that intellect and expertise across that, and offering people opportunities to develop. So we've been working quite closely with Supply Chain Sustainability School, which is very good. So that, again, that's free access to vendors to have a look at and join. So again, that's a very good resource. And again, with our clients, some of our customers are incredibly forward thinking, and what you know, and then others are perhaps not. But it's then, so within the framework that we've developed, we're sort of like, at the moment, we're in our first year, which is informing people. So it's just really improving that intellect, which is great now in the sense that you've got that economic argument, which I know we don't really want to be in, but we are in that. So it just makes even more sense to move faster and, you know, consider these investments that organisations can do, whether it's through the supply chain or whether it's through customers. So We don't see the difference. It's just making sure that we're trying to just raise the whole profile of sustainability.
Okay. Roger, are you the same? Or anything you'd like to add?
We work very closely with Apple, who are leaders in this field. So they have an environmental product declaration, which looks at all of their products from an ISO 14040 and 14044 point of view. So it's been internationally verified. And it looks at components, the source ingredients, the components that are going into the manufacturing. It looks at the manufacturing process itself. Then it looks at supply and delivery. And then it looks at usage over a blended 3 or 5 years. And then the afterlife, which with Apple, of course, can be not 3, but often 8 or 10 years after it's been first bought, because afterlife takes a long time because you hand them down to other people or colleagues or friends. And according to that, they come out with kilograms of CO2 for each product. So let's take the entry-level iPhone. It was 72 kilos, then it was 68, then it was 64. This year it's 61. And that's it. And it's ISO, so we can record what it is. Now, Apple's long-term view is to try and make every single product 100% from recycled elements. And when they turn over nearly $500 billion a year, by the way, 1 trillion seconds takes 33,000 years. So that's how much a trillion is. It's a lot. When you think how big they are, I mean, they're selling there's billions of iPhones out there. There's over 2 billion iPhones in use, a third of humanity. The numbers are mind-boggling, but that is what they are intending to do. So that every single product. So we are now trying to take that lead and talk to other vendors like that. ISO are fully compliant with ISO 14040 and 14044, for example. As for customers, well, we think the customer's king, so you've got to listen to them. And more now, it's coming up on tenders. It's coming up on requests for pricing. And when we see a customer who's interested in this whole thing, we jump on it and help try and bowl them over. So it's becoming mainstream. All positive, all moving in the right direction.
Okay, so a couple of quick fire questions, starting with Matthew. Do you think King Charles should attend COP27?
Well, somebody asked me this question the other day, and somebody said, "Oh, King Charles isn't going to Egypt, to Sharm el Sheikh," and I said, "Well, that would be one less person who flies there." So, I don't know. I mean, I'm fairly neutral on the topic, to be honest. I didn't actually know he was going in the first place, so perhaps maybe I'm not too concerned about that particular topic. But no, I think COP26, the Glasgow Pact, and the Paris Accord that was agreed at Glasgow, I mean, that was obviously a pretty important COP. This is Conference of the Parties. So I think it is, obviously COP27 needs to sort of consolidate and keep things on track. But I don't think, King Charles will make, it would be nice, but perhaps not essential. I think with COPs, the devil's in the detail, and often it's the last few hours of these meetings where actually things are agreed. So I'm fairly ambivalent towards that, to be honest, Andrew.
Roger, do you have a view?
I violently think you should go. I think you need to have celebrities there like Greta and him, David Attenborough. I think we don't just want boring men and women in suits, politicians who none of us trust. He's in a difficult position. Liz Truss has said he shouldn't go, or advised him. Alok Sharma has now said he should go. Alok Sharma is a member of the cabinet, and of course the outgoing, he's going to pass the baton to COP20, the next holder in COP27, Egyptian. So I think he should go, because it just sets the tone. I agree with your point about the last 5 minutes to midnight for all the decisions, but nonetheless it sets the tone and it will get the headlines, and so it's important.
Okay. Sheryl, do you have a view either way?
I think, he's always shown a great compassion for sustainability in whatever form, and I think he would definitely add to it. Now, whatever the politicals behind it, I think it would definitely be a plus to go, and I hope he does.
Okay, and to end with, I was thinking about what I've actually been doing at home to make from a non-business contribution. And I suppose there's two things that are currently going on, which I feel proud about. One is my beloved Land Rover Defender will visit Oxfordshire, hopefully in the next 4 to 6 months, to be converted to an electric vehicle. So its diesel engine will be removed and replaced by an electric engine. And secondly, just ordered a couple of days ago a rug for home that is being made out of recycled bottles. So those are two sort of, one actually has happened, one is about to happen, examples of what we're doing at home. Matthew, is there something that's a recent event that you feel good about from an environmental point of view?
Well, hearing about your Defender being converted to an EV is probably the most exciting thing I've heard recently. So that's fantastic news. Well, two things. Firstly, I've turned the flow temperature down on our gas boiler at home. Often they can be set too high, and you have to be a little bit careful with condensing boilers, but you can turn the flow temperature down, which saves money. And I've also been reading this week about DIY electronics sort of enthusiasts who are making little monitoring devices for their, for example, flow temperature or additional things they can add to their electric meters to help them monitor home energy use. And I think these are sort of small IT devices running on maybe things like Arduino platforms and that kind of thing. So I'm quite pleased to hear that people who are interested in electronics and energy are starting to actually design, build and implement their own products. And I suspect some of these might actually get commercialized. So I thought that was quite an interesting development.
Thank you. Sheryl, anything?
I've moved to a electric hybrid, and I've ordered a full electric car, but it might take a little while to come. So I have got a charger now at home, which was actually a lot less painful than I thought, because there is quite a lot of consideration when you actually get it all connected up and isolation connections and everything else. But actually, it's worked out all right. And if you think about the fuel that you use in comparison to the cost of the electric, it's still, even with the prices they are, it's still a really positive move. So if people are considering, it wasn't as painful as I thought it would be. So I'm very pleased about that.
And Roger?
Don't buy a Christmas tree this year. Get an artificial one, an eco-artificial one. I've moved my pension scheme away from fossil fuels. I've got a soda stream, Ecovair, dishwasher tablets, 2 electric cars, oat milk, electric barbecue, recycling more, compostable bin bags, trying to cut down on, I had to cut down on beef, got rid of gas oven, gone for electric. Oh, Apple Pay, stop using cash. Loads more to do. Giving monthly now to Tree Council, Water Aid, Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth. And of course, they switch to an eco-energy supplier if you possibly can. I know it's very difficult at the moment, but there's so much to do. It's diet, transport, and then heating and insulation. Those are the 3 main areas to try and do something on. But go cashless. You can start that this afternoon.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you very much. I think at least we've all demonstrated that we're committed both in our private lives as well as our roles in companies. I'd like to thank you all so much for your time this morning. I hope it's been of interest to those who are listening. And let's meet again in 23. But thank you so much to everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks very much. Thank you.